Hello, everybody. We have today a special guest who wanted to share with you his CPA exam journey and how he passed the CPA exam. His name is Ryan Bakke. Hello, Ryan.
Hi, hello. Hi, so yeah, my name is Ryan Bakke. I'm 22 years old. I live in Chicago, Illinois. Recently just passed all 4 CPA exams. I found out I passed my last exam, I believe early August. So over the last 2 weeks, it's kind of been like a real high for me, I guess, that I'm finally done with the journey. My journey started off back when I was an undergrad, actually. I had started studying for the exams while I was back in school. And you'll hear this a lot, but your knowledge of GAAP accounting and accrual accounting will never be as good as it was when you come out of college unless you actually work in that industry. So that's why I think it's really important to try to get the exams done as soon as possible after college, because your knowledge of accounting won't be better unless you're actually working in GAAP accounting, if you're doing financial reporting or doing journal entries, right? Because if you just work in tax or you might work in consulting or advisory, you may not have the opportunity to do the accounting stuff that you did, which the CPA exam is that accounting. There's BEC has finance, there's cost accounting, there's taxes, all sorts of things. So yeah, and so now I work at a Big Four accounting firm. We are fully remote, in the heart of busy season coming up. But I did want to take some time to share my story. I see here that one of the questions was, why did I want to become a CPA? You hear a lot of times people say, I like helping people, or I like help solving people's problems. I like doing that too. I just like helping people with their money and helping them find their money and where it goes and how to track it. And when people make drastic life decisions, such as maybe they want to gift a house to somebody, or they want to know the implications of this transaction. Like, a lot of people don't think about the tax or the legal ramifications of it, or the licensing fees. Like, if you got a guy that wants to start a small business, or a family that wants to start a small business, not a lot of people think about the accounting or the legal side or the tax side of things. And I like to help people ease that nerve of not knowing so much, and that's where I feel like I come in and do my service to the world.
Great. So first of all, congratulations on passing the exams. This is a great achievement, of course.
Thank you.
And is there anybody behind this your CPA exam passion? Was there anyone who really motivated you, or inspired you to become a CPA?
Yeah, so definitely my parents were very supportive of my journey. I mean, I was waking up early morning, 5 a.m. to go work out at the gym and then study at the library all day. So I spent a lot of days doing that. Big shout out to one of my now coworkers who also works at my firm. Her name's McKenna. And we actually met on a CPA support group on Facebook, and we've just been kind of best friends ever since. And that's what I would recommend to anybody is try to reach out and find a support group, whether it's on Instagram, Twitter, or if you're using Bakke CPA, they have Facebook groups that you can use, which is where I found one of my really good friends now. And you guys can just talk it through, maybe something that the instructor is saying you don't understand completely. So you ask somebody, hey, how did you understand it? Can you put this in your words, like how you understand it? And it just helps with that aspect. And the whole motivating and inspiring thing is that, you want to surround yourself with other people who are going through the same situation as you are. Those who have been through the situation before, because they're going to have experiences to talk about. And I think that's important. I was watching your videos, I was watching a ton of other people's CPA exam experience, but everybody's going to have their own different story to tell. Everybody's going to pass, nobody's going to pass, not a lot of people pass the exams all 4 on the first try. I did not. I actually failed one. Some people do pass all 4. Some people, it may take 3 or 4 times before they pass one. So everybody has their own story to tell. And that's what I think is important.
Yeah, so every person is different from the other. So a very important thing people must know is that they must not compare themselves to others.
Yes,
If someone passed, for example, in 3 months, that doesn't mean that anyone can pass in 3 months. So everyone is different, and has
everybody's story is different. Yeah, comparison is the thief of joy. So another thing, the thing that I'm looking to get into now, after being a CPA, is actually motivational speaking and being a leadership speaking. But you're really not in life, like you're not like, don't think of it as competing against other people, but you're competing against yesterday's version of yourself. And that, I want to be better than the person I was a week ago, or a year ago. Where was I, and then start today and say, okay, where do I want to be in 1 year from now, 3 months from now, 2 years from now? Where does my life, like, what do I envision my life to be 2 years from now? And you're competing against yourself and not necessarily others around you. So it's a good point. And like I said, to the whole point of timing, like everybody has their different timing.
Yeah.
And now there's mechanics of the CPA exam that we can talk about as far as like study strategies and which ones to take first. And I've been on this grind. So I went FAR, audit, BEC, and reg, and I did them in that order. And I missed out on audit the first time by 3 points. But then I did then I went right through to BEC and reg, and then I came back and took audit back in July, and I got a passing score. To my point about the whole coming out of college thing, like your knowledge of GAAP accounting and accrual accounting will never be as great when you leave senior year of college. So that's why it's a good recommendation to start with FAR. Two important reasons with this. 3 important reasons actually. First, because coming out of college or wherever you're right into GAAP accounting. The second one is the timing. So your clock starts 18 months as soon as the day you pass the first exam. So you don't want to leave FAR for last because, especially if you're working full time. It took me close to 7 weeks of full time studying for FAR, close to 2 months of 35, 40 hours a week of studying, and you want to start with FAR because your timer starts as soon as you pass it, right? So you don't want to pass maybe a different one, and then you have 3 or 4 months to study if you're working full time just to sit for FAR because your timer's already running. So I recommend that. But then also just the flow of the way the exam. So FAR talks a lot about financial statements. There's revenue recognition, journal entries, transactions, and all that stuff that you learn in FAR, ratios as well, bleed into the other exams, audit, BEC a little bit. So that way when you go to take audit BEC, you don't have to relearn the stuff that you don't have to teach yourself for the first time some of that material. Some of the material kind of blends in a little bit. And then reg kind of stands alone on its own little island, although you will learn about book to tax differences. So if you have, GAAP or financial accounting and then the IRS, well, GAAP says we can depreciate those assets slow straight line over here. So your book value of your equipment goes slow down like this. Whereas the IRS, in some certain cases, you can take the full expense of the asset in the year you buy it. And so you have book to tax differences, but that's probably the only thing like that correlates between reg and the other exams. So that's why I do like that order. If I could go back, I would do the same order again. Audit BEC back to back like that because there's a lot of internal control, COSO, financial framework that overlaps between audit and BEC. So I really liked how that worked out. Any other questions about the strategy? I'll be honest, and I think I told somebody else this, is I still never knew exactly how I studied. Like, because at first for FAR, I would start writing out notes and reading my notebook. And then that got too tedious. So then I would start typing out the notes. But then that took too long and I never read my notes. So everybody has their own strategy. I would recommend like doing what worked for you in undergrad. In undergrad, I didn't have to study too much just because like I showed up to class every day. I paid attention. So I guess the CPA exam was a little bit of a wake-up call because now I actually had to keep detailed records of what I was studying. A tip, when you're studying for your first exam, if it's not reg, write out the ratios on flashcards and put the flashcards by your bed. And you want to get ratios down to a T because they're tested on 3 different exams and they're easy points because it's just memorizing a formula. Now, what I would do is keep the flashcards or your notebook by your bed because before you go to bed, instead of like looking through your phone or going on Facebook, you could be studying and it puts you to sleep a little bit faster, like going through flashcards. And so, but by the end, if you do that every single night for a month, you're going to have ratios like the back of your hand. So then not only that CPA exam that you're studying, whether it's FAR, audit, or BEC, but you're going to know ratios for the next 2 exams to come.
Good, great tip.
Yeah.
That's an amazing tip. And regarding the strategy, I totally agree with you. Like there's no certain strategy that works for everyone. Like everyone is different, and
Uh-huh.
we all change our strategy based on what best fits for us. So, for example, me, the same thing. Like I used at the beginning to watch lectures, then I saw that they are wasting my time. So I just
Mm-hmm.
the best thing for me was to read the text, understand it, and then solve questions. And that's how I did it. So everyone's different. Some people like watching
Yeah.
lectures. Some people take notes. Although I hear from a lot of people the same thing like you, that taking notes really takes a lot of time. So a lot of
Yeah.
people start taking notes, then they stop that, or they take
Mm-hmm.
only the main issues or the things that they are weak in. So yeah, the strategy differs from a person to another based on the study personality and what works best for him. But
Right.
most importantly, what I found very helpful is solving questions. Like after understanding the concepts, maybe reading or something, it's very important to focus on solving questions and improving the time management skills and understanding the concepts through the questions as well.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to the point, like, about the whole lecture thing, I also heard that before I started studying. Like, people would say the lectures are a waste of time. So and so, some of the lectures are better than the others, and that's like really like whoever does the lectures for me personally. But when I was watching the lectures, like sometimes they would say stuff that like clicked in my head, or they were explaining it as an example that actually made sense to me. And I think on FAR and audit, and maybe even reg, I like remember their voice in my head when that problem came up. Like I remember like they have mnemonics. Like I remember that in my head. I remember that, them saying that. So like I thought the lectures helped. I watched every single lecture for like background. I don't think there was one that I skipped at all. Granted, I was studying full time for the most part, but I watched every single lecture at least for the first time around. And then if I struggled with it, I would go back and read the full chapter. I did read the chapters too. Like I would skim it just to see if I knew some of the material. So for those coming fresh out of college, like you might recognize some of that reg material. Hopefully you would hope that your tax program, your accounting program is up to date with the tax changes because of the new Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that rolled around for 2018 tax year. You would hope that you have college professors that are, tax professionals, CPAs, lawyers themselves that help you with those changes. So let's see.
So how did your schedule look like when studying for the exam? Were you like, did you study more in the morning or in the evening? What's works
Yeah.
for you? Yeah.
Personally, like I think my brain does work best a little bit more in the morning. All my exams I scheduled were like early. I think the latest one I ever took was like around noon or 1. That was because I had to drive 2 hours to go take it. But just do it. I would just say wake up a little bit early, get it done in the morning, because as the day goes on, like that gives you more opportunity for you to get distracted or something. There might be something on TV that you want to watch. For me, it was sports. Like, oh, there's this basketball game on tonight, or this is going on. But then you also have friends that are like texting you throughout the day. Try to do as much as in the morning when everybody's asleep. If you can wake up at 6 or 7 a.m. before everybody else is up and get as much done then. If you don't, of course, if you don't have work, because the more the day goes by, the more opportunities there are for you to get distracted. And so that's why I would always start studying around 7 or 8 a.m.
Yeah, great.
If I wasn't, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then when you are studying, try to stay like, shut the phone off. No Facebook. Like it's really hard because you're doing all study on the laptop, but try to like remove the distractions, because you have to be honest with yourself that, because come exam day, you have to sit there for 4 hours undistracted with your undivided attention focused solely on the exam. So you want to practice how you're going to play and practice how you take the exam. So, try not to, study distracted, I guess.
Yeah, great. That's a great tip. So, what are the mistakes that you made during studying for the CPA exam that you would like to advise candidates not to do, and you would like to share them with us?
I think one of the mistakes that I made was following the time rules too strictly. So like if you guys use Bakke, they say, okay, 150 hours for FAR or 120 hours for audit or this many hours for BEC. That's a good ballpark, but again, that's based on one person's standard of learning, right? Because everybody comes from different backgrounds as far as how much they know in accounting. For me, like my experience is in tax, so a lot of the flow through, S corps, like a lot of the tax stuff came natural to me because I work in that field. So I didn't have to study the amount of required hours. However, on the other hand, like for FAR, I had to study more because my experience is not too much in GAAP accounting other than my college. So one of the things, for example, for audit, when I did fail the first time, I studied for audit for about 4 weeks full time. And I did the 120, 130 hours that they recommend. However, I just didn't, my college professor used to say, like, to let it massage in my brain a lot. Like, I didn't let the material massage in my brain. So I didn't have a good working terminology with audit when I took it the first time. And I think that hindered me. So to say it in a less way than I just did, just kind of like be honest with yourself where you're at in your process. So that's where the review tests are good, like taking, practice tests to see where you're at. Don't just think like, okay, I study for 150 hours, which is what it recommends, that like I should be good to go. Like, be honest with yourself. If you put in the time, like I think it's a test of diligence and work ethic. The material is very hard, but it's a test of diligence. Can you sit there and be diligent with yourself and honest with yourself that you're going to actually study the material and not skim through the chapters or skip problems, skip questions. I did every single multiple choice question once over, twice over, 3 times over before my exam. So
yeah, great. So what's the best strategy for the final 3 to 4 days before the exam that you would like to share with us? What did you do before the exam, the last week, the last couple of days of the exam? Yeah.
So that last week, right, if you can prevent it, I mean, try not to learn new material in that last week, last 10 days, because those last 7, those last days are crucial, because that should be like full on review mode. You're trying to figure out where are you weak in, what areas do you need to get better at, and then hone in on those areas. But then I would also say about a week out from your exam, and this is why it's good to get involved in these communities a little bit earlier, but you have the AICPA blueprint which outlines what's on the test, but some of those communities, without giving exam disclosure, some of the communities will say, like, you can get a vibe of what is heavily tested for that exam in that period. And so you may want to focus a little bit more in those areas that are heavily tested, at least for the sims, if that makes sense. So for example, like I remember when I took FAR, like a lot of people would say, oh, cash flow accrual is being tested, or this is being tested. And I would pick up on that and I would study it a little bit more. And then fortunately, I may have saw that on my exam. And then same thing with reg. If you've been paying attention, like reg, everybody's been saying basis lately. And that has been heavily tested lately, because the blueprints there online, it's not a coincidence like what they test on the exam. It's just some periods they'll test more than others, certain areas more than others. So it's really just getting, like, fine tuning your areas that you're weak in. If you're weak in one little small part that doesn't blend in with a lot of the other stuff, it's just like a one-off area. Try to pay some attention to it, but don't make it too big of a deal. But if you're weak in, like, say, financial statements, and you're going to go take FAR, like, that's not a good plan of action. Not a practice how the financial statements flow through to each other. If you're just learning that for the first time, the week of your exam, it may not work out well.
Yeah. Okay, great. So what's your advice for candidates who failed the exam once or more? What do you like to tell them, and how will they be able to overcome this failure?
Yeah. So there's this guy I listened to. He says, can you be committed to the process without being emotionally attached to the result? Meaning, regardless of the outcome, the test, the transaction, the work thing, can you be committed and diligent to the process of what you're doing without being attached to the result? So basically meaning, if you do get that 72, like I did, can you still give it same effort, more effort, come back in with a head, clear mind, and can you give it that same, can you give it same, if not more effort? Fine tune your areas, figure out where you were weak in. Whether it's, okay, this really tripped me up on the exam, whether it's government accounting for FAR. For like government accounting and nonprofit, not a lot of programs teach that in undergrad, so that's why it's really a challenging area for some students when they do take the CPA exam. Just if you fail it, I mean, I did not expect to fail it, because I did walk out of the exam feeling confident. But how I overcome it is I just moved on. I just told myself like, hey, the past is the past. I can't do anything to change it. If you guys read a lot of books, the person who wrote Narnia, C.S. Lewis, said, you can't go back and change the past, but you can start today and change the ending. Meaning this day going forward, I get that 71, I get that 70. I'm 5 points off. I'm right there. This day going forward, like I can't go back and change what already happened. I can learn from the mistakes that I made in the past and have it benefit my future, whether it's I wasn't doing as many multiple choice questions as I should have, or there's a difference between like knowing how to do the question, whether it's FAR or audit, whatever it is, or tax, and then actually understanding the implications behind it. Because it's one thing to just do the math, the way Becker shows it or Wiley shows it, but on the exam, they might show it in a little bit different format. So if you don't know the theory or the principle behind what you're doing, then you won't recognize it come exam day. For example, like if anybody's studying for a reg, if you have a self-employed individual who pays taxes, files a Schedule C, pays taxes, self-employment tax, the self-employment tax, obviously it's extra, right? Because it's the employer's half of FICA and your half of FICA. So it's a tax, but not a lot of people know that it's also an adjustment to the Schedule 1. And so if you don't know the processes of how that flows through, and you see it on exam day, it could be challenging.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
So yeah, can you be committed to the process without being emotionally attached to the result? Meaning whatever happens, like the past is the past, like we can't change it, but be diligent enough to figure out, work your tweaks, figure out what went wrong and try to change it.
Great. So can you give us some day of exam tips for the candidates?
Exam tips.
Yeah.
This is going to be different for everybody.
Yeah.
A lot of people would like to get Starbucks or something before the exam. Sorry, I'm getting pinged. Personally, I wouldn't drink coffee before the exam because it might get your tensions up a little bit, like your anxiety up a little bit too much. Maybe try to stay away from caffeine. I did eat a big breakfast though. I would eat biscuits and gravy, or I would go get breakfast, but I would stay off the coffee. I guess let's backtrack. So day before the exam, you should be reading your notes, going through your flashcards, reading the book again. Maybe you do a couple of questions just to get your brain a little energized. But the day before the exam, just take a chill pill. Don't put in 7 hours of studying unless you absolutely have to, and you for sure you don't know the material, right?
Yeah.
But the day of the exam, and I didn't start doing this until I took BEC. So this was my third exam, but I would, because everybody says okay, day of the exam, just go take your test, don't do anything prior. But for BEC and reg, I would warm up before I went to go take my exam. So I would do a couple of sims or, maybe 30 multiple choice questions, an hour or 2 hours before my exam, just to get my brain warmed up. And for reg, I had mentioned that they touch a lot on the basis sims. The morning of my exam, I went through all the basis sims in the Becker material. I spent about 2 hours doing that the morning of my exam. And when it came to my exam, I had, if not the same question that I was doing in the Becker material, which Becker's great. And I remember the exact numbers that were in the Becker problems, and I just wrote those out and I replaced them with the numbers from the CPA test. And but that was because I did that the morning of, my brain was fresh. So I would say, if you're doing some last minute studying, whether it's the day of or the night before, try to do some of those, those areas that are heavily tested in the past, because it's bound to show up. And then when you do get to the exam, bring a bottle of water and a snack for your break, because you will get thirsty / a little hungry during your 15-minute break. And the last thing, you want to have a time management strategy when you go into the exam. So what I would do is I would write out 2, 3, 4, 5, and this varied based on the CPA exam, but I would write out Tesla 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is terrible handwriting, but I would write, okay, if there's 4 hours in a test and I want 20 minutes per sim, let me backtrack. So fifth Tesla has 3 sims, so that's an hour. So I want to start the 5th testlet with an hour left. If testlet 4 has 3 sims and I want to do 20 minutes each, that's an hour. So I have to start that 4th testlet with at least 2 hours left. 3rd testlet, there's 2 sims. I want to do 20 minutes apiece. I have to start that testlet with 2 hours and 40 minutes left. Second testlet, there's 33 multiple choice questions, and work back, because the worst thing you can do is spend so much time on a sim or an MCQ or whatever, and it's hard, you're struggling, you don't know it, you're sitting there on exam day and it's like, oh, it's not coming to me. If you waste time, that is time that could have been spent on a sim down the road, down the line, maybe in the next testlet that you actually knew how to do and you were confident in. But if you spend all that time like on that one that you just can't get, you're going to be losing out on time. This is especially in FAR. This is really important for FAR and reg, like the ones where a lot of people tend to run out of time with. Audit and BC, not so much, because it's not as calc intensive, but for FAR and reg especially, like try to have an exam strategy of, hey, I want to be done with this testlet at a certain time, right? Because the worst thing that could happen to you on exam day is you get to that 5th testlet and you haven't even seen the last sim and your time expires.
Yeah.
And now you got a blank sim and you just lost those points. And then you just pray that that was a throwaway sim.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great tip. That's very helpful, really. The time management is very crucial and important during the exam. And a lot of candidates, they fail the exam because of the because they did not have a time management strategy for the exam.
Yeah.
So that's important.
Yeah,
Great.
so that, even the night before, 2 nights before, get that out, penciled in, get it on paper, so that way when you do get to your exam, you can write it out, type it out. Okay, hey, I need to be done with this first testlet with 3 hours and 20 minutes left on the clock. I need to be done with this second one with this much on the clock. So that way you don't run out of time. And you at least get a chance to see every problem. You don't want that 5th sim to be like something easy that you know how to do and you just ran out of time to do it.
Yeah, great. So what did you learn from your CPA exam experience?
So much. If we're talking technical about accounting and how everything flows throughout all 4 aspects: financial accounting, auditing, reporting, reg with taxes, I learned so much like technical stuff. I feel like as an accountant, I'm way, way, way better than I was 7 months ago coming out of school. Way smarter, and that's just on the technical side. Because I know how things are taxed now. I know how this flows to this. I am so much smarter than I was 7 months ago. On a personal and a motivational level, through the roof. It is setting goals, guys, is very important. Pick a date. Hey, I want to take audit. I want to take it 2 months from now. Put a date on your calendar and set it. There's this guy, he said, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. If you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. So, nobody plans to have an unhealthy eating, like eat too much junk food. Nobody plans to say, maybe be overweight. Nobody plans to do this, but like, if you don't plan for the opposition, it's going to happen, right? So, prepare and plan through your life. And like I said earlier, like set those mini goals with yourself. I want to take audit in 2 months. Here's my timeline. Set small goals. And when you do set goals, they need to be SMART goals. They need to be specific, measurable, achievable, reasonable, and in a specific time period.
Yeah. Great.
Don't just say you want to lose weight. Say how much weight and how much time.
Yeah.
Put a stat on it. But yeah, I mean, the motivational thing just through the roof. I'm trying to motivate, inspire every person I come across, and whatever goal it is, whatever thing they decide to do in life and to achieve. Henry Ford once said, "If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." And
absolutely. Yeah.
And so that's my new avenue now. Like once I'm, with my free time, I'm going to devote it towards motivating and inspiring other people. I think I might get into some CPA exam coaching too down the road. Oh, so my scores. So far, I got an 82. The first time I took audit, I got a 72. I took BEC, I got a 93. That was my best score. On reg, I got an 89 on reg, and then the last time I took audit, I got an 82. So not the highest scores. I've known somebody who's got the Elijah Wassells, but again, I'm proud of what I've accomplished, and I'm proud of what I've seen other people accomplish, and you can do it too, I promise. I had a 2.6 grade point average in high school. if I can do it, I had D's in my math classes in high school. If I can pass the CPA exam, you can do it too.
Amazing. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Ryan, for this, the great motivation and inspiration. I am sure thousands of people out there will get inspired by you and motivated by you,
I hope
and
so.
you will help a lot of people, I'm sure. Wish you the best in your professional and personal life after passing this amazing
Thank you.
exam. And thank you so much for being with us today and for this initiative to share your CPA exam experience and motivate others.
I just hope I didn't talk too fast. All
Thank you
right,
so
I'll
much.
talk to you soon, okay?
Okay, guys. So goodbye, guys. Goodbye, everybody.